On the last episode of Menace, the Ken story. Ma came to visit every Saturday, and I was relieved that she seemed to be doing well. I stopped crying after the third visit, but me and Sebastian kept butting heads. There's something about being in close quarters with someone who has a complete and utter disregard for other people and their property. That was Sebastian. We had room inspections every Friday. If we failed inspections, we couldn't have our weekend visits. Sebastian didn't care because Sebastian didn't have visitors. He told his family not to come. So because the consequences didn't apply to him, Sebastian wouldn't help me clean the room. Not only would he not help me clean, but he was nasty. Sebastian threw trash into the floor, peed around the toilet, you name it. And knowing that I wouldn't get my visit if the room wasn't clean, I cleaned it every Friday morning. And every Friday afternoon, me and Sebastian would fight. He didn't care what he did. If I left a pencil on the desk, Sebastian was going to steal it. Not only was he going to steal it, but I also wondered if he was going to stab me in the neck with it when I went to sleep. And because of that, I slept with one eye open every night. I learned very quickly about the natural order of things. There was no point in complaining or trying to get help. There was no help. No one was going to take Sebastian and put him somewhere else. No one was going to make him clean or force him to stop stealing. I had to do what I had to do to stay in compliance. But once I checked the boxes, I was going to fight him. Every single time. And when we were questioned, we kept our mouths shut. What bruise? I don't know what you're talking about. What black eye? I ain't getting a fight with nobody. If the guards or counselors didn't see it, it didn't happen. We managed to make it through most of my sentence that way. But with less than 1 month left, Sebastian forced my hand. I was asleep, minding my business. I woke up in the middle of the night and caught this dude standing over me. He was just standing there, looking crazy. In my mind, that was the night that Sebastian was going to stab me with one of the pencils he had stolen. I wasn't going to give him a chance to get the jump on me. I jumped on Sebastian and slammed his head into the toilet sink combo that was in our room. We started fighting from there. It just so happened that one of the guards was doing rounds and heard the commotion. It was the middle of the night and too quiet for the fight to be disguised by the normal goings-on of the building. The guards broke it up, and we couldn't deny that a fight had taken place. Sebastian said that he had only gotten up to pee and was surprised when I attacked him for no reason. But I know what I know. That nigga was standing over me, and it ain't no telling what he was about to do. I had to get him before he got me. Sebastian got relocated to another room. Finally. Apparently, I posed a risk to his safety. After that nigga tried to smother me with a pillow, I posed a risk to his safety. Either way, that's what it looked like. And for that, another 2 weeks was added to my sentence. So, instead of being released in July, I was released in mid-August. Chapter 12, Some More Levels. Narrated by Symone. A couple of weeks passed and we rolled into September. It was the 1995 school year. I had turned 17 in July while I was in juvie. And guess what? I went back to school. I had gotten locked up midway through the year before, so I obviously hadn't completed my grade. The year before that, I got kicked out for fighting that Tony dude, so I hadn't completed the grade that year either. Long story short, I was 17 and in the 10th grade, again. But I went back to find her. I ain't gonna lie, the way I went about it was messed up. There were a lot of apologies owed. I mean, I didn't intentionally get locked up, but I should have told Shelonda that there was something going on. At the very least, she wouldn't have been in the dark. Instead, I just let it hit her in the face. I knew for a fact that Omar hadn't given her the letter. So as far as she was concerned, I just went away with no explanation and no desire to put her mind at ease about any of it. And for that, she should have been angry. And because she should have been angry, I had a responsibility to fix it, or at least try to. And that was the plan. I promise it was. I went back to school as a 17-year-old in the 10th grade just to find her and fix it. My plan was to go to our lockers and plead my case. I thought I'd have to work on her. I thought I'd have to let her step on me until she felt that she had gotten her lick back. But it didn't happen that way. On day 1 of my third 10th grade year, I walked to my locker. Shelonda was standing at her locker with the door open, just as she had been the year before, on the very first day that I saw her. I walked towards her and stood on the other side, wondering how I was going to approach things. My heart was nearly beating out of my chest. But when she closed that locker and saw me, Shelonda smiled. And it wasn't the shy but sweet smile. It was broad and happy. Her eyes lit up in the way that I hadn't ever seen. It was like watching a child open a toy on Christmas morning, a toy that they had been waiting for all year. Well, in our case, a toy that she had been missing for 7 months. Shelonda wrapped her arms around my neck and hugged me tightly. There was so much intensity, and I knew she meant it. She missed me. I could feel it. And for as messed up as it sounds, I knew I didn't have to do the work. I didn't have to explain. I didn't have to let her step on me until she felt that she had gotten her lick back. Shelonda was happy that I was back, and I was going to go with it. I held my hand out to collect her books. Shelonda looked at me for a second. Fearful that I was losing control of the situation, I decided to grab it back. I boldly said, "Ain't nothing changed. You still my girlfriend." Shelonda smiled and passed her books over to me. I walked her to a class. I know, it was messed up, but I didn't want her to feel like she had other options. Seriously, Shelonda was mine. After being away for 7 months and having all of those thoughts swirling around in my head, there was no way that I was going to see the door open like that and not walk through it. The plan was for me to grab Shelonda back. She just made it easy. And she didn't disappoint me either. I came back after 7 months, and I knew that she wasn't dealing with anyone else. I saw the way guys looked at Shelonda, but it was like no one else existed to her. Nothing ever looked funny. It never seemed like there was someone that she had to cut off for my benefit. It was me and her, just like it was before I left. But I didn't want it to be just like it was before I left. Something had to give. Being honest, Shelonda was a good girl. She didn't deserve all the cheating that I was doing before I went to juvie. But, come on, I was 17. I wanted to be good to her. I honestly wanted to just be with her, but I couldn't. Not as long as I couldn't have sex with her. So I decided that our relationship had to level up. We had to have sex so I could be faithful to her. That's the only way it could happen. Shelonda was 15 and I was 17. Escalating the situation with Shelonda meant that something very specific had to happen. I had to get my driver's license. I had failed the test when I was 16, but it really wasn't a big deal. For the most part, Rob made sure that I got wherever I needed to go. But things were changing for me, and I needed to be in different places. I mean, riding around with Hot Boy was cool, but he wasn't exactly welcome to tag along with me and Shelonda, so I handled that. I got my license and got Kenny's car registered in my name. Then I started the process of working Shelonda up to where I needed her to be. I'm sure it won't come as a surprise, but I didn't present it as an option. I told Shelonda that I'd be picking her up for school in the morning and dropping her off in the afternoons. I knew that her parents were strict, so I told her that I'd pick her up from the bus stop. There were lots of kids there. She'd never be missed. That was the plan, and she was expected to follow it. Shelonda made it easy for me to do things that way. She never resisted. I did that for a week or so, just long enough for her to get comfortable with the idea of riding with me. But after that, we had to move up. Many people may wonder why I did it the way I did, but it's like I said earlier. I felt like Shelonda was completely pure and innocent. And while I was definitely trying to change that, I wanted to do so in a way that felt comfortable for her. I didn't want her to feel rushed. But there was something else. I needed something too. I woke up one morning and I was in the worst of moods. It wasn't just a bad mood. I was sad. There was a picture of Kenny on my nightstand. I looked at it and the tears just started flowing. For the first time in a while, I cried over losing him. I didn't just cry. I sobbed. If not for the fact that Shelonda was expecting me, I would certainly have skipped school that day. But I didn't want to let her down. I drove to her bus stop, feeling like something was pulling at my heart the entire time. I was just sad, miserably sad. When I arrived, Shelonda opened the door with a smile. She sat on the passenger side and threw her book bag into the back seat. "Happy Wednesday," she said. And then it occurred to me. It was Wednesday. With no conscious effort on my behalf, my heart was sad for Kenny because that would have been our day, if not for the fact that life had gotten into the way. But there was something else. I looked into Shelonda's eyes. I saw her smile, and I heard her voice. And for no reason other than the fact that she was there, the heaviness in my heart lessened. It was like someone had taken a ton of bricks off of my chest, and I could suddenly breathe. It was a literal, physical reaction. At that very moment, I understood something. Shelonda wasn't just someone that I had met. She was sent to me for a very specific purpose. There was a reason why I was so drawn to her. It was the reason why she, out of every girl that I had ever met, wouldn't stop playing around in my head. Shelonda was intended to be the other part of me. How could she have softened my heart like that otherwise? I made a pit stop on the way to school that morning. I took Shelonda to the path where I used to go with Kenny. For some reason, I felt like it should have been a part of her too. That day was special. I kissed Shelonda for the first time that day. I don't mean the little peck stuff that we used to do every afternoon. I mean, I kissed her. And she kissed me back. It was slow and sensual and sweet. It didn't matter how many kisses I had before that point in time. That was the one. My heart nearly popped out of my chest. My goodness. And then I thought to myself, how the heck she know how to do that? But it didn't matter. She knew, and I loved it. And those levels just kept leveling right on up. Me and Shelonda started spending more time together. I made Wednesday our day because I needed to. I needed her on those days. She made it better for me. I didn't really think about Kenny when I was with her. Shelonda had a spot in the wood too, but hers had a little shack and everything. On Wednesdays, we'd skip school and hang out at the shack. We talked a lot. I asked her what her favorite song was. It was a song by Whitney Houston, "Where Do Broken Hearts Go?" Keep in mind that it was 1995. That song came out in 1987, but it was still her favorite. I bought the cassette tape for her, and I listened to it for the first time. The words of that song made me feel like there was something broken inside of her, in the same way that there was something broken inside of me. But I grew to love that song because she loved it. There was a line in the song where she looks into his eyes and just knows that he still cares for her. That's kind of how it was with Shelonda. I looked into her eyes and I just felt her. It was innocent in the beginning. I allowed it to be. I needed her to get comfortable with everything, a little bit at a time. But once she was comfortable, the innocence went out of the window. We were first for each other. I was the first person that Shelonda ever had sex with. And after that first time, I told her that I loved her. That was the first time that I had ever told anybody that, even my parents. We weren't the type of family that said those types of things. But I told Shelonda that I loved her because I loved her. And she told me that she loved me. I knew for a fact that she meant it. Me and Shelonda started having sex every Wednesday. And even though I wanted it far more than that, I was faithful to her. But then, well, stuff happened. Shelonda and I were both in the 10th grade that year. Even with missing every Wednesday, she easily ended the school year on the honor roll. I, however, was only occupying a space. At that time, Mom would have gotten into trouble if I wasn't enrolled in school. That, along with my desire to find Shelonda, had been the only reason why I'd gone back in the first place. But in the short version, I failed the 10th grade that year. Not because I fought the Tony dude and got expelled 2 weeks before the end of the school year. And not because I got locked up for weed possession and got sent to juvie. I failed the 10th grade for the 3rd time because I didn't do the work. But there was something different about that time. I was going to turn 18 over the summer. Not only was there no legal requirement for Mom to make me go to school once I was grown, but there was no way that I was going to be an 18-year-old in the 10th grade. On top of that, I had already locked it down with Shelonda. We had something solid. I wasn't worried about where I stood with her like I was the year before. With that being said, I knew I wasn't going back to school that next year. I promised to still take Shelonda, but I was done. So, Shelonda was out of school for the summer, and I was out forever. We obviously couldn't do our Wednesday thing because she couldn't get out like that. The only way I could really see her was to meet her at the park when she took a little sister. Even then, we could only sit and talk for a little while each day. Then she'd have to go home. So, yeah, I cheated. I didn't even really want to. I wanted to, but I didn't want to. It was just a placeholder until me and Shelonda could resume our normal business. It was a girl that I met at a party. Easy access. Nothing more, nothing less. But about a month in, Shelonda found out, and it didn't go well. We met at the park that day. Shelonda sat beside me and nonchalantly asked, "So, you want to tell me about Melanie?" My mind started racing. How could she know about that? I thought. I didn't really know what to say, so I asked what she was talking about. She asked again, a little more directly that time. "Ken, who is Melanie?" "I really don't know what you're talking about," I said. I remember having a conversation with Kenny. He told me that it was absolutely pointless to lie to a woman who already knew the truth. As Kenny put it, if she's asking, she already knows. Shelonda was asking, so she already knew. She turned to face me. Very slowly, she said, "Ken, do not lie to me." She had tears in her eyes, and I could tell that they were mere seconds away from falling. And the second the first one trickled onto her cheek, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I felt the tears forming in my own eyes, and there was nothing that I could do to stop them. All I could say was, "I'm so sorry, Londa." And out of nowhere, she just started hitting me. Shelonda punched me in the head and face while I cried and apologized to her. In my mind, I thought, this is exactly what Pops used to do when he had reached his level with Ma. I didn't try to stop her. I just let her get it all out. And when she did, I was honest with her. I told Shelonda that I cheated because I missed her. I was only filling in the space with Melanie because Shelonda had been inaccessible to me. And that was the truth. Shelonda was so easygoing. But that day, she put her foot down. Shelonda looked me right in the eyes and said, "Ken, you have to choose." I shook my head and said, "There's no choice. It's you. It's always gonna be you." And I meant that. Shelonda wasn't just some girl. I was only 17 years old at the time, but I understood something very well. That girl was something to me. In the years to come, I'd end up crossing some hard lines and breaking her heart many times. But I love Shelonda. It was always gonna be her. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to purchase books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and some in hardback formats. Please like and follow this podcast, and feel free to share it with your friends, family, and frenemies, because all relationships matter, even the toxic ones. Thanks so much for helping me to create the world that I want to see. Oh yeah, you're welcome. Shine, little girl.